With today's topic, Health in Africa and Black Community series, we will be empowering all Africans in the diaspora and the continent by sharing tips and encouraging statements about maintaining good health in general, especially as we have mentioned, it all really starts with relationships. By addressing and sharing tips on the importance of proper illness and management once an illness is diagnosed. And also, we hope to continue to encourage our people about good, healthy habits of eating well and exercising. So, but what we are gearing today is hopefully get you in a mindset to know that every day is a New Year resolution. We are also hoping that our show will encourage you to find ways to form or strengthen a healthy relationship with God first, which is our first priority, and also friends and families and relatives, which forms a healthy, thriving African Black communities as per our topic discussion today. Okay, now let's take a moment to open up with prayer and really be in the presence of God. So really, without further ado, let me just go ahead and have Vanna, can you lead us in prayer?
Sure.
All right, awesome. We're glad to have you here.
Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for waking us up all today. I thank you for the space and the time to just fellowship and talk about great and meaningful and important things in our community as Black people. I just ask that you be with us, allow us to hear each other, to collaborate, to listen with our ears and our soul. I thank you for our lovely host for connecting with all of us and bringing us together. I just ask that we all just enjoy this time, be intentional, be honest, be loving and respectful, and make new connections. Allow the message that we are here today to discuss just to be heard in so many ways, and that we can continue the work beyond this conversation for the souls and spirits that need to be saved and need to be connected so that we as African people can live our best in this world that we are in. And I just thank you so much, God, for everyone on this call. Yeah. I ask that it be a just wondrous time and that we continue to lift each other up. It is in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for that wonderful prayer. It's really brings us to the presence of the heavens. I am so glad. So the heavens are open and we are there with him. And for he said, wherever two or more are gathered, there he is. So without further ado, our wonderful guest panelist, I will start with our returning champion, and that is Dr. Tade Akere. She is a wonderful director in mental health services background. And in fact, she has a mental health services company that is a one-stop medical practice providing psychological support to patients dealing with anxiety and depression. And also in an international arena, she serves as a clinical director to provide psychological testing for children with developmental disorders. When you hear her, she's a wonderful, great host. She's a wife, mother, and minister of faith in the Faith Ministry of Jesus House here in Chicago. Thank you so much. And help me welcome, round of applause for Dr. Tade Akere. All right. And next, moving on, is Master Greg Gray. And this gentleman we've come a long way for over 5 years now. I've known him. He has helped me actually with my marathon. I've done 3 marathons. My first marathon, I could not have done it without this gentleman. He's a fitness guru with over 20 years of experience in the industry, providing services to both corporate clients and individuals. In fact, the human mind and body have been a passion of Craig's, and ever since he could even remember. In fact, he started off as his lovely career working in physical therapy as an aide before venturing over to exercise and physiology. He's running fitness facilities for the last decade right here in Chicago area. Greg works also with clients who had joint issues, and apart from ability to help the clients recover their injuries, he loves teaching classes for high intensity of which one of them I have actually witnessed and participated in. And it's really beautiful that we have him here. He's a great one for getting you in shape, conditioning you, whether you want conditioning or strengthening training. Please help me welcome for the first time debut of To the Prayer Talk, Master Greg Gray. Thank you so much for joining us. Beautiful, beautiful. And of course, following suite with Master Greg, joining us also for the first time too, as you heard her beautiful, wonderful voice. She is excellent. I can't wait to get her answer most of your questions. Ms. Vanna Cash is an actor just like myself and also an educator who's so well-rounded. Vanna has over 20 plus years of experience working in performing arts and education. She's also has been in over 40 productions and directed over 50 shows, trained and acted with so many of the biggest top Chicago's most elite theater companies. In fact, if I start naming them here, you'll be amazed. But with masters in education for acting and theater education, Ms. Vanna has taught elementary, middle school, and high school students. And this is where her niche is, where she gets opportunity to redirect their lives. It doesn't matter what questions they ask her, she has an answer perfectly for them. She loves inspiring others and young minds, especially working with elementary students, encouraging lives for their best living eternally and externally, as she takes greater pride in our community, living exemplified lifestyle. Looking forward to continuing to allow God to use her throughout her day on a day-to-day basis. Thank you so much, and welcome, Vanna. Appreciate you. Thank you for that wonderful prayer too. Once again. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, and welcome, Vanna. Appreciate you. Thank you for that wonderful prayer too. Once again. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you so much. Yeah, we are now ready to start and diving into the Topic Talk Show. To those just joining us, my name is Chinwe Lebechi, your host. Now, let's get started. So, I'm going to go ahead and start with Dr. Tade Akere, and just really diving into the overall mental health, which we're going to, really discuss a little bit more in depth later on. I learned a little bit. I heard from the grapevine that you also have a book about it. Are you ready to tell us the title about your book that relating to mental health also as well?
Sure.
Okay, great. So let's share a little bit about that, and then also tell the audience how you came about for that and how important it is to be my main question, which is to really be able to treat families as well as the youngster or an adult who's of mental health.
Okay, that's a broad question. Thank you, Bibi. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me again. I really enjoy being on this show because it does help us to come together as a community to talk about topics that pertain to us, topics that affect us as a community of Black people all over the world. Just a little history about myself. I have 3 young adults, 3 boys, and my middle son was diagnosed with autism at about 5 years old. And that started my journey in, just going through that journey to become a doctor of clinical psychology, because I was just looking for services. I was looking for help, for support. And I realized that there's nobody out there that's going to support you just like yourself. There's nobody out there that's going to support my community like I can. And that's how I got into that field of clinical psychology. While my son was growing up, through my struggles, I started to write a book. And the book is titled No, Not My Son. So that book was written from the perspective of an African mother who, was caught up in the United States with a child with autism, surrounded by a community who have never had, as well as myself, never had the word autism, and just struggling with it by myself, finding, services, support, trying to, pull my community by the ears, like, come on, guys, this is not a stigma. It's not because I have done anything wrong. It's not because I have sinned. But like the Lord told me is that, the name of the Lord might be glorified. So I started to write the book, and to God be the glory. I finished it during the pandemic. I guess that was when I was able to really sit down and, lock it down, finish the book. But it's a journey. That's all I can say. And the journey is mainly because even if I didn't have a child with special needs, I would not be aware. I would not be conscious of the fact that people with special needs they're actually people just like us who have needs. There's families out there that are struggling, and there is a stigma that comes with it in our community, in other communities, even in, the Western world too. There's a lot of stigma that comes with mental health. So I think it is something that we need to continue to talk about, continue to raise awareness of, and I'll stop there for now. I don't know if you have if there's anything else you want.
That's awesome. That's really wonderful. Tell us, what do you think with that experience? Do you think there has been a change? As you mentioned, the communities, the African community, I'm more concerned about, in terms of with respect to how we treat the individual, let alone even lend a hand in terms of assistance. In whatever way we can, whether it's financially or just really support. Simple support is probably what the family may be looking for. But I grew up here, but I kind of remember as a child seeing, other fellow children that are disabled, how they were, maltreated, and or not necessarily maltreated, but like really, like you say, that seems like it's a stigma. It's bad to be, disabled. So do you think that has changed a bit? I haven't, traveled a whole lot back home to see the differences in terms of the respect for it and the acceptance for it and the support for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's changing very, very slowly. From when I was growing up, now we have a lot of people like myself who are going back home, who are creating awareness. A few people are going back home and they're starting, because they didn't have services, they created services for themselves. They created schools, they created programs, support programs, of which I am a part of, which we go back and we do, psychological assessments for children. But then we still have that, we still have the issue of continuity of services, so we don't have enough programs to go around. The schools are not yet there. Some of the schools are trying. The public schools, no. The government is trying, but very slowly, because there's always politics that's involved. When you go in and you said, well, I want to set up a program, it's like, so how much is our cut? And you know how our community is. So that kind of hinders a lot of progress in that area. As far as the stigma is still there. It's still there. A lot of people pretty much do not take these children out in the public. They do not, the rich will send their children abroad, so they can be in boarding schools where they're kept away from the public eye. But, people who have the kids pretty much keep them at home, send them to the villages, get rid of them. They still do that. Or just put them in they have a few homes, and financially, there is the support. People have NGOs, but a lot of it, sometimes you see that there's always some kind of benefit to it for some people, but some people do have the compassion. But I think where people need help is just that support. It's that compassion. It's not just the money. Right. Money is good, but just the support, just the compassion, just walking up to a parent and say, how are you doing? Is there something I can do to help? Can I take this child for 2 hours so you can go shopping? Can I take this child for just for a weekend so that you can, do? So it's and that's even here in the US. Those are the kind of supports that I was looking for, back then, just for somebody to just, walk up to me and say, are you okay? What can I do to help? But most people will just walk on by, and because they don't know how to approach you, they don't know what to say, they just ignore you. And there's nothing more painful than, being ignored when you're suffering and you need help.
Oh, God. Thank you so much for sharing your personal insight on this. This is really a topic that's so dear to us here at Prayer Talk. So thank you so much for sharing that. I want to go ahead and bring Vanna a little bit on there. She deals with children a lot. Vanna, what would you say? Have you had any encounter in teaching or maybe even just within family and friends of the ability to support any particular family that may be going through such a ordeal?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. Even just with children that are misdiagnosed with different learning disabilities and students that actually have them. I'll give you an example of something recently. Like, a lot of kids obviously haven't been in school buildings since the pandemic has happened. And for some grades, it's been like my fifth graders right now, they haven't been in a school building since like third or second grade. So just like having to kind of start from a lower level. And I have a couple students that are in fifth or fourth grade and just can't read at all. And while they receive, their legal services for those things, I know that no matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to teach them how to read, like the ability that fast within a whole school year. So, working with parents that are active parents, but, sometimes there are parents that either are not around for whatever reason, parents that shouldn't parent, and then, they're not involved in school the way that they should be. So it just feels like a holding center for them until they decide when they want to actually be in the parent's life. And, people can believe this or not out here in the world, but the way children react and are affected by the things that happen at home, it shows up in different ways. And those are not always things you can just put a Band-Aid on or, give a prescription for. So, I have a couple students that can't read. So I teach theater, and I'm like, okay, I'm thinking of like really accessible ways that I can accommodate a couple students that are gonna, act up in class because that's how they choose to respond to their ability not to be able to read. They're shaming themselves, or they think that, that's the only thing that I can do. And I'm like, well, we can all, work to help you to learn how to read, but acting up is not gonna really solve anything. So then for somebody that, might not have different ways and experience to, nurture and support students like that, it's like, educators and parents, there's different ways that you have to utilize not only classroom management, but just talking to the students. And sometimes it cuts out of time when the behavior that they're demonstrating is not just, okay, well, I know that I can't read, but I'm still going to sit down and watch and pay attention. I'm still going to, I still can actively participate. So it turns into these behavior issues. And I mean, with having great conversations with the parents, we can do our part, but it's when the void of nothing happening over long periods of times that just becomes problematic. It's time that contact is not happening with the students, and when the development is just paused, that's just like sitting, a baby in front of a TV for years, or not factoring time in for reading when their brains are just like ready to absorb all these things, and then they just are behind. So I mean, with just being hands-on and asking the parents, like, how can we support you? I'm even willing to tutor, but tutoring is not gonna fix everything, but it can definitely help if we commit to it and recreate a system of structure. And it's just a matter of like who's willing to do that. Because I mean, try teaching a 6-year-old how to read that absolutely doesn't know how to write, in a performative subject, but let alone just with math and reading, that creates so much. It creates a lot of difficulties, even if they're, a gifted learner. You're really just working under a different path. And if there's no plan to, like, say, all right, by by the time they get in 8th grade or 6th grade, we're going to work on seeing some growth so that we can get them up. They just become like in that particular category. And I believe that you can grow out of learning disabilities or whatever that is, a speech impediment, if you're practicing. So they're
so
just,
what I'm hearing is really that with the COVID, it impacted children in this way. And what the problem now that may arise is that a lot of these children, like you described, may then now be labeled as, so it's really a case that warrants maybe even speaking up to your principal and the parents bringing it up so that they don't get them mislabeled as, not really learning quickly. But it's a great point you shared. I really appreciate that. So thank you so much. Let me bring Greg in a little bit in terms of fitness and nutrition. Greg, you have any experience on this? I know some of your partners that are during the time I was coming to the fitness center, I did see some elderly people, a blind man being held by one of your fitness partner. And I was really touched how he guided him in so many ways and just really being there for him. What can you teach us or tell us about that kind of situation as far as a fitness guru expert?
In regards to physical fitness with kids, or in regards to physical fitness with people with disabilities?
Is it with really children or an adult? Like I said, I saw that was really touching for me to see that he was able to help him holding his walking stick and guiding him to each of the stations, so he could do his reps and telling him, really lifting his leg and showing him what to do. That was really I was very touched, so.
Yeah, that was a unique experience. I've have some blind relatives, so I've had to learn how to train differently when I'm working with the visually impaired.
Right.
But in regards to children in fitness, one of the main things I like to tell people is if you can do activities, take your kids hiking, go on bike rides, nature walks throughout the community. I've even gone to like museums and have multiple layer art galleries that you can go to, and just add in steps or physical activity just naturally would be the best way for kids. A lot of times people try to get them in the strength training a little bit too soon, and it kind of stunts their growth.
But I'm sure you've seen almost like a disabled type of a situation in terms of you helping people who are injured and maybe may not be able to walk for a while, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. I started in physical therapy, so I feel like there is probably such a big need for mental health experts when you're recovering from injuries for physical therapy. A lot of people need that guidance, but in terms of working with someone, if I was trying to help them out through like a blind moment. I don't know where I'm going with this, but
it's okay.
My words a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's come to you and digress a little bit and dig in a little bit more in terms of the wellnessness that we're trying to achieve here in terms of making sure people are well-rounded in acceptance of people. That helps you to really feel relaxed, well-rounded in our spirituality. That helps you to relax, because anything that leads to relaxation, again, is calling for wellness. Before we go towards the other side, let me go ahead and ask you, Greg, then, how do you feel in terms of, someone who really needs to continue to do the wellness or / fitness exercises? What is your way to encourage such an individual, such as like a diabetic patient who will really benefit in losing weight? What are your ways that you can get to someone to working towards that?
I teach them what physical fitness actually is. Like you mentioned, the multiple layers that wellness can be. Starting out with teaching them what strength training is. It's a concept of an eccentric motion, muscles shortening or lengthening. Telling them how to teach them how to keep tension on the muscle and not just moving it. A lot of times people move their body, but they don't know how to have that mind-body connection where they're actually engaging with actual tension in that area. Using the 5 factors of fitness, whether it be strength training, cardiovascular training, knowing the different levels of types of cardiovascular training you can do, from steady state, what are the benefits and non-benefits from steady state, what are the benefits from interval training, where your heart rate changes, intensities.
That's awesome. And I'm going to go to Dr. Thaddeus Akere. What do you think, what did you think in terms of, or did you ever try any kind of nutritional diet differences to actually kind of like support and help? And did you notice any change with that in terms of how your child was recovering?
Yes, when he was younger, we did try, we tried so many things, and diet was one of it. Like if you read my book, there's one chapter that says, I will try anything. And I will tell you, I tried everything. The only thing I didn't do, I didn't go the diabolical route, right? The voodoo stuff, right? But that's why I drew the line. But I tried anything and everything that was out there. Yes, we tried the nutrition for a little bit, and it involved, they were talking about gut health and probiotics and a lot of things that kind of affect the children eat that affects their brain. And we tried to actually change his diet. And one of the mistakes we made was we tried to change his diet. For children with autism, they talk about gluten-free and casein-free diet. So we tried to do that, which is so hard because everything out there has gluten or casein. You have to be very, very particular about it. Now they have stores where they sell gluten-free and casein-free foods, which makes it easier. But back in the day when my son was growing up, we didn't have all of that. So it was very, very hard. But we did try it. We tried. I would bake bread and, make spaghetti. Just right. But he didn't eat it, because he's a big eater. He loved, that was one of the things that gave him satisfaction, that helped him that was very soothing for him. And he would not eat. And then he lost so much weight, and, it gets really scary for us. And at some point, I just gave up the whole diet thing.
You just gave up?
We try to make sure he wasn't taking, too much sweets and sugars and just basically unhealthy stuff. But at some point, I would tell you in that area, we didn't do very well with that because it was hard.
I asked because I heard that diet can make a lot of difference, just like diet can change in any other type of illnesses, And
so for some children, it did make a difference, where they would start, children that were not talking at all would start verbalizing, and that kind of, I've read a lot of that, and some parents would, the differences were not as pronounced as, as I would have wanted from what I see. So it wasn't, because he started talking at some point. So I wasn't looking for, the talking part, but that was the main thing that was, that a lot of parents wanted, that their children would communicate, which is also what I wanted. But the diet was just hard.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, definitely. I am a true believer in diet and exercise helping to, kind of navigate through whatever illness one is going through without having to wait till it's like, at the close to end stage type of thing. But let's go down to further more on our well-roundedness for healthy living. Vanna, tell me, how do you feel the quality of education system is affecting our health? I know you kind of gave a little bit information on that but just briefly tell us, how's that?
I feel that, as we think about health and, Mr. Gray mentioned mental health, I feel that especially for, young people and older people. I don't feel that a lot of the schools present now have our best interests in a lot of ways. I mean, you know, there's so many schools, unless you're homeschooling, if that's what you want to do, or you find some type of Montessori network, which there are a lot of African and Black centered schools like that are starting. You know, women are opening their own schools because parents just realize, you know, no one can teach you about you and your culture. Just having, if you want to really provide and have control over what your kids are learning, so that you know that they're not being fed poison or just misinformation, you have to really you have to be aggressive about finding the right school. So at large, I do feel that there are good schools out here, and you know, you could start off at elementary and just send your kids to, you know, maybe the college of their choice. But I feel that for those years, I think that we can be more aggressive and specific and intentional about choosing better schools, because I mean, not to say this quickly without saying a lot. I mean, there are so many different things that show up in the news, and I've even seen it with just discrimination, the violence, attacking, you know, our kids for just being who they naturally are, not really learning the best things in subjects and having the accessibility, and just the food. So I definitely feel that with the resources that are out here, there's so many of us in education, there's so many people in business. I think that if we think about what do we really want education to look like for us, I mean, we could start our own schools, or we can just network with people that are doing those things.
They're doing something good, right?
Put the tax dollars that we pay so much in without even really knowing how much. We can really save money and really, you know, hire retired teachers, you know, hire engineers, bring back trades into schools, so that our schools can really just reflect that utopia of, you know, I like to say kind of Black excellence that we could have without, you know, feeling frustrated. Even if you know, are at a good school, you don't want, every parent doesn't, you know, want their kid to just be the second or third Black kid in a rich school that has everything, but then, you know, their kids feel isolated in so many ways. And I can tell you this, and this is the last thing I have to say. Most schools, they're not going to send these facts out, but I've seen the numbers. Every kid, for every student, each school gets from the state at least on average like $15,000 or $18,000. Wow. For students that are in special ed, it might be twice that. I don't remember the number of that, but most of the time, you know, if you subtract like teacher salaries and facilities maintenance, a lot of that money is not really seen when it really applies to the education of the school. So you wonder, like, okay, we need more of this, we need more of that. Where is the money going? And, you know, there's been articles about high shot administrators robbing pension funds. So that would be reason alone for me to, you know, put my money elsewhere.
Somewhere else, right? Good. So then in terms of being intentional, I like the way you look at that. And being intentional, how do you feel as we are trying to do in this show, being intentional to incorporate and accommodate everyone from all walks of life, and really being intentional to bring it where all of us as Black African nation can start respecting ourselves. We can remain on our differences, but then really having that intentionality. But let me pose the question: how do you feel Black creatives like yourselves and myself, and of course business professionals, can then work together more intentionally and strategically create more opportunity for our work and images that we have, that will be then representing a good health, a good prospects, prosperous lifestyle, and positive ways of living that we are trying to achieve here?
I think we need to think about what do we want our legacy to be? Do we still want to, you know, live in this, you know, world where, like, okay, it's really, really, you know, it feels good to be Black, but like also we could only be just this much, or these are the type of stories that we can tell now, but there's still like a bar and limitation of, you know, if we talk too real, we might get canceled, or this particular place might not support us. So I think we need to think about our legacy, how many people we can work with to just support our vision the best way that we want. And, you know, how do we foster, you know, those interconnectedness and intergenerational bonds among us, so that we really just feel like, okay, I have somebody in this field that I could call on that can mentor me. I think mentorship is important, not being afraid to give information away just because I want to help you, because, hey, I might not have been able to take this particular course. I might not have been able to get an apprenticeship, but hey, I know, you know, this wonderful woman that has a PhD that wrote a book, you know, she might be able to lead me to something. And I consider her like an auntie or a mentor. And I know that, you know, we have each other's back, and I respect her. Instead of, you know, it just being like closed off, because, you know, in other communities, like white people all the time, I mean, privilege is real. We don't have, you know, a certain level of privilege that, you know, some people were born into, and not all white people are bad, but we have to look out for ourselves and open those doors just like, you know, other people do, but, you know, very lovingly.
That's good. That's good. So, like you mentioned, Dr. Tadea, she's an excellent person. I mean, relationship wise, she's open, a big heart for the world and for children and Africa. Let me piggyback to her, and that's the intentionality that we have here at Prayer Talk, is that Prayer Talk, you know, most talk shows, you try to get just only the experts to come and, you know, talk to one another. But here at Prayer Talk, we believe that so long as you believe in praying to God and bringing the vision, it's really important that we bring someone like you, who's a performer, to get to know Dr. Tadea Kere, who is a psychologist or another doctor, or if it's, you know, so we kind of like bring on board our guest speakers to kind of get that well-roundedness of community that we're looking to know, so that the network can continue to grow, like you said, in terms of that. Dr. Tadea Kere, what would you like to say about this kind of intentionality?
You know, you guys hit the nail on the head. This is my passion, my new passion, honestly, is creating a community. You know, circling back to the conversations we've been having over the last few months and in the last talk shows we've had about all Black people all over the world coming together and creating a community. We've heard about the what do you call the Black Wall Street?
Yeah,
I have nightmares about it.
Oh,
like,
my goodness,
we just
God.
recreate that? Can we all have a community where Black people come together? We have our own hospitals. We have our own banks. We have our own services for special needs. We go to Broadway and watch. I do not. I go to when I go to Nigeria, I make sure I go to the theater and I watch the stage shows, where if anybody's having something here, I want to support Black businesses. I'm a huge advocate for supporting Black business, because every other community supports themselves. If you walk into Dunkin' Donuts, when we first came to the US, you would only find Indians there. If you walked into a Chinese restaurant, you would only find Chinese people working there. So why can't I want to hire, you know, at my business, I would want to hire, you know, my fellow Black people first before I get, and I'm unashamed about that. I'm sorry, you know, because Black people have been kept down so long.
Divided.
I love other cultures, other communities. I want to learn from them, and I see that, you know, what Mavana was saying, people keep things, you know, they support people in their communities, they pull each other up. So I have this, you know, we have a practice, you know, like your husband and you also, you know, you guys have a practice. We look at the young Black doctors who are looking for, or nurses who can't find a place to do their internships. and we pull them in, we help them, just like my brother that's a physical therapist, you have someone who needs help. Help a brother first. Help a sister. That's just me. Building our own community, supporting Black-owned businesses, not being afraid to share information. Just pull everybody up. Let's just, my husband always says, like the doctors, teach one. He says something about no one teach one or something. I don't know. They say
teach one, reach one. I think it's how
teach one or something like just. Pull somebody, mentor somebody, help somebody that will benefit. And you just hit it on the head. We cannot not sharing information. We need to share information. We need to be willing to help one another. We need to hire one another. We need to do business with one another.
Yes.
If you're selling, whatever you're selling, I want to buy it from you first before I buy it. Sorry, I just went on that, but that's just a passion that I have. I mean, you were at the program last week for the church where we had the women showcasing their businesses and just encouraging people to support one another. Small businesses, we have small businesses. Somebody's selling African foods. You can go there and buy from her. Somebody's selling, little scrunchies. Just support her and buy from her. So
that's really great. That's the whole intentionality we have on this show, as you've seen from all the times that we have been together too. When I put this some speakers together, some people be asking me, well, do they have that experience? I'm like, they don't have to have that experience. You don't understand the uniquenesses of this show is that the first requirement is prayer. If you can pray, you can come to this show. And then, because every single one of us keep thinking that we don't have anything to connect us to someone else. But guess what? If you are a restaurant owner and you are sick, you're going to have to connect to a doctor, right? So you might as well start connecting, getting to know them on a show that you come together with, like Vanna rightly said, now you are her auntie. So that's beautiful, That's wonderful. That's what we want to see.